Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, nā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Warm greetings to you all from Aotearoa and Te Whanganui Ātaroa, otherwise known as Wellington. As I speak from Aotearoa, I want to acknowledge Māori as tangata whenua and also the importance of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, recognizing Māori as Tino Rangatiratanga of Aotearoa, New Zealand. It is my great pleasure to open and host this last session of our pre-conference in advance of the 48th ICTM World Conference happening here in January. I'm delighted to have joined our partners in Canada, Australia, Taiwan, and South Africa over this weekend for some really great talks, and thanks to everyone for organizing those. And I look forward to engaging with everyone here in Aotearoa. I want to thank my collaborators on the program committee co-chairs, Marcia and Kirsty, Marcia Ostaszewski and Kirsty Gillespie, for helping lead this event. And here I'll just ask them to say a few words of hello once again. Marcia.
Gwe, hello, and Jilida, welcome with Brian. We warmly welcome everyone to this last session and thank everyone who's been present through whichever parts of this symposium this weekend. And especially a very warm thanks to all of the presenters and practitioners and knowledge holders who've been sharing with us their songs and their stories, and some who are joining us for presentations after having given their own. It's really a delight for me to see Jerome and Ruiha again. And I just want to note that some of you may know that I, along with the Dean of our Unamagi College, Lorianne Sylvester, took a group of students from here in Unamagi, the ancestral and unceded lands of the Mi'kmaq people on the Atlantic coast of Canada, or Turtle Island. We took a group of students with us to Aotearoa this past summer as we were meeting for planning for the 48th World Conference. And Jerome and Ruiha, they were sharing about Māori language and culture and music. And some of these students are even here. Michelle in particular I know is here, so she might want to give a wave and say hello again to Jerome. I'd also like to say a thanks to the research assistants who have been helping us with this symposium. In particular, Eric Escudero, who is leading the group of research assistants that includes also Peter Verdon, if he could give a wave, and Ulysses Figueroa. They've been helping us with the preparations, and Anna, who is Eric's wife, also has been helping us with getting the word out, promoting, and now these fellows are helping us with the tech. So to support a really smooth symposium. So I thank you. And also just to say how delighted and grateful I am to work with this tremendous team and with Kirsty and with Brian, of course.
Thank you, Marcia. Kirsty.
Thank you. We're full of thanks. And so just a few words of me adding my my thank yous to. So yes, I'm speaking to you from Meanjin, Brisbane, Australia. And it's just been a delight to speak to you from here, from the lands of the Yagara people in Moorooka. And I just have thoroughly enjoyed working with Marcia and Brian on this program for this pre-conference symposium, working with the presenters, working with our tech team, our wonderful support to have this happen. It's been wonderful to hear all these very rich presentations that kind of point to some of the themes that we'll be able to revisit again with more time at the World Conference in Wellington in January. So I've really thoroughly enjoyed working with Marcia and Brian towards the program for January, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing as many people that can be there in person then. So thank you very much, everyone, for all your work.
Thank you, Kirsty. And just a note, if you're joining us session new, we have recording the past sessions that took place from Canada, from South Africa and Taiwan and Australia. Those will be posted online. We know because of time zones, different people can and cannot engage, but the full membership of the council can engage with those recorded videos. We'll be reminding you of that. Now, for this session, our first introduced our speaker here from Aotearoa. But first, let me say that just in terms of planning, so we'll have this last session. Then after that, we'll take a pause and we'll announce the results of the 2024 ICTMD prizes. And these are for the best article, book, and film. These will be published in the upcoming October bulletin, as we do every year, but we thought we'd take a moment to publicly announce those. So I know we'll have a couple people popping in maybe right around that time. And then after that, we'll close the session. Now, our presenter for today is Jerome Kavanagh Poutama, and I know Jerome will talk a little bit about his background and his work, but I thought I would say a little bit here about really the fabulous work that he has been doing. Jerome is a Grammy Award-winning practitioner, composer, and artist, particularly of what we call here tonga Puoro, Māori instruments. Over the past 21 years, and working alongside his partner, Ruiha Turner, who's also been joining us, viewing online, Jerome has become a full-time independent tonga Puoro practitioner and has become one of the most prolific providers of Puoro, of Māori instruments, in Aotearoa. Jerome is a featured artist, co-writer, and lyricist on the two-time Grammy Award-winning album Calling All Dawns, produced with the London Philharmonic Orchestra. Jerome is an established composer of music for film and television internationally. Most recently is taking on the first role as main composer for I Am the River is Me, just from this year. And this is a production that celebrated the first river in the world to gain human status here in Aotearoa. He has produced a number of albums engaging with Māori instruments and the healing practices of tonga Puoro in modern times. Over the past decade and through Atua, he has utilized and revived the Rongoā Māori ancestral practices of sound therapy in response to generational trauma for his people in the modern world. He has shared the Atua extensively around Aotearoa and Marae and Wainanga, in schools, universities, and businesses. Jerome was appointed as the 2022 Composer in Residence at the New Zealand School of Music here at Te Herenga Waka. Kia ora, Jerome. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time hearing from your Aroha today.
Kia ora, Brian. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah? Nice. Wow. Kia ora tātou. Tuatahi, I'd like to just start off with a bit of a ruruku, which is a way of starting with a prayer that's based around nature, and so it includes us all, and perhaps afterwards I'll give a little translation so you know what I'm saying. So, me he ruruku tātou. Karana kia rangi nui tui o nei, karana kia papa tuanuku e tā katoa ke nei. Kia rauta te poianga tangata e putangari ki e putanga tauira. Kia rapai ai te rakupumatu ngā tāne, ngā rongo ki ngā hautapu a tā uri mā te ake are ua i whiti mai te rā. A ki te tangi otutu tangi moke tangi manawa rau ka tauri. Ki te tangi ai oa hene pū te hu e pū te ai o keirona keiraro ke waho ke roto. A pū te ai o keirona tatu katoara whiti whano tau mai te mauri, haumi e hui e, tā e ki e. So much thanks this morning. And so, I thank Brian for inviting us in to be a part of this, and of course Marcia, who we met on the trip recently to Aotearoa. Beautiful time together. And of course to you, Michelle, as well, who I met as well amongst the other whānau that came. And thank you also, Kirsty, for organising and this beautiful gathering. And of course to you all, aku whanaunga o te ira tangata, that means my family of humans tuning in all around the world. What a beautiful occasion. My partner Ruiha was meant to be here, but it's school holidays, which we didn't remember about, and so I wouldn't say I drew the short straw or anything like that, but we had to work out who was going to jump in here and who was going to man the children, which is so if you hear a noise of children running outside, our children are pretty loud and just being themselves, so don't worry about that. That's just where we are. My name is Jerome, not a very Māori name, in fact a French name. I'm not sure why my parents named me Jerome, but nevertheless, that's my name. And I come from quite a few different tribal peoples, and so I'll start with the one where I am here, which is Matakore Maniapoto. That's from, so we're based in Te Reo, which is the centre of the North Island, or a bit south. So I'm kind of from the central North Island, or Te Ika Maui, the fish of Maui is the original name. And so, yeah, I'm from that tribal people. And I grew up in Mokai Pātea, which is a mountainous area, lots of rivers, and not too far from the ocean as well, so pretty lucky. And then on my grandfather's side, grandmother's side, we're from the Awa Wanganui, which is what Brian mentioned as the first river to be given human status, legal status, or personhood. And then Kahungunu, which is the east coast, and Tūwharetoa, which is the lake area, the heart of the fish. And then I'm just trying to remember so I don't forget any. Yeah, that's about it. Ngātirangi, which is the mountain people as well. So those are my ancestral connections. And so that's on my mother's side. On my father's side, I'm Pākehā, or European, and from Ireland, and from a place called County Kerry. And it's really important for us to acknowledge all our ancestry, because, you know, obviously for all of us, without our ancestors, none of us would be here. So that's kind of a more traditional way that we greet each other, or present ourselves, is by talking about our mountains, talking about our rivers, and talking about which tribal groupings we belong to. So that for me, where we live on a Papakainga, which is our one of our ancestor homelands, called Te Reo. And Te Reo was is the cutting of the hair at tangihana, or funeral ceremony. And I wanted to acknowledge Renfred and Ruben and Isabel in that beautiful presentation. And there were a lot of things there that were very similar to us here in Aotearoa, and some differences as well. And I really love to hear that. And I heard him talking about the hair cutting and that being a gift. And so where we live is called Te Reo, and it's based on an ancestress who cut her hair at the time of tangihana, and she was known to have really beautiful long hair. And so that was a way that our still is a way that our people practice that funeral ceremony, is to be able to give something at that time of themselves to acknowledge that important part of life. Yes, so that's me. And as Brian mentioned, my taonga, or gift, that I'm able to offer and contribute as part of our people is taonga Puoro. And so most of my presentation or talk's going to be about showing those and sharing those, and sharing the kind of concepts behind them, and also the stories, the ancestral stories, which are really beautiful. We also spend a lot of time travelling around our schools with our kids and reviving taonga Puoro. And so part of our history in Aotearoa was that we had a law in the early 1900s, and that was the Anti-Tohunga Suppression Act. So that meant, a tohunga is really a specialist in a field of the culture. And so I suppose in modern times you'd refer to them as doctors. So you can dedicate your life to these art forms or cultural practices, and then you become a tohunga of your field. And it's not something really that you go to university for and get get a certificate or some kind of paper acknowledgement. It really comes from your people. After you practice for a long time, you become recognized, and then your people start to acknowledge you and call you that and give you that status. It's not something that you give to yourself. Yes, so that's my field of specialty, or as I mentioned, the taonga, the gift, the treasures that I can offer to our people. And in relation to this kōrero, this hui, this gathering, our tupuna primarily use taonga Puoro, our music, for healing and in ceremony. And then if you have visitors coming to your area, you might entertain them by telling stories and sharing the music in combination. So that's kind of the traditional format of our music traditions. All of the instruments come from the nature, just like when Renford was talking about taking his young ones out into the nature to harvest the wood and to prepare and make those. We have a similar tradition or practice, and so I thought I'd start off by sharing this first one. It's called a Puutorino, and I'm not sure how clear the picture is, but hopefully you can sort of see this shape, and so perhaps just reflect and think about what sort of shape, what might this be in the nature. And I'll give you a clue, it's a flying insect. And it comes from the cocoon or the chrysalis. In our language we call it wharetūngaungo. One remarkable thing that I learned when I spent time in Whenua Moemoeā, which is our name for Australia, the dreaming land, is that there's so many different languages, like completely different. And you might already know this, but just in case you don't, in Aotearoa we can go from the top to the bottom, and we can pretty much speak to each other and understand. There's some dialectal differences, but yeah, we're in that way we I wouldn't say we're lucky, but that's helped in our revival of our languages, that there's not one language, but yeah, there kind of is, but then there's different dialects, and so our name for this is Puutorino, and the Puutorino comes from Raukatauri, and she is our Atua, which can be loosely translated to goddess, and I say loosely because Atua is really about the A is the potential or the beings before Atua, and Tua is it's so what it's referring to is our creation story, that nature came first, and then the last beings created were humans. So that's our creation story, and so Atua are those beings before us, and we have a belief system or practice, I guess, around the Atua or the nature. We have a whakapapa connection, which a whakapapa is a genealogy connection. So we, while we all have family trees, and we have human family, when you get right to the top of our ones, then you start going into the Atua, which is the nature. So we have that direct whakapapa or genealogy connection to nature, which is sort of our approach to it all. So this is Hine Raukatauri. Hine Raukatauri, as I mentioned, is our Atua of our music. And so this is the pūrako, or the ancestral story that we share with our children, so that they can remember and understand that growing up. So you can see her face over here. I'm going to tilt it to the side there. And right in the central part, that's Hine Raukatauri. And in this story, Hine Raukatauri, she comes to the top of her whare, her cocoon. And before that happens, she spends a whole moon cycle creating her chrysalis, and when she gets to the top there, she's finished. And our ancestral name for this, it's a type of night moth. It's called a raukatauri moth. That was our tupuna name for that. In English, it's a case moth, and it's got a Latin name, but I'm not an expert in Latin. So, so anyway, she came to the top of her cocoon, and she had completed her whare, her house, and she was preparing to start a family. And so, in celebration, in completing her whare, she started to sing. And this happened right on Rākaunui, which is our name for the full moon. And so she came out at the top of her cocoon, and it was night, and she started to sing this beautiful song. And her song was a song of thanks, giving thanks to the nature for providing all the materials and the opportunity for her to start a family. And so this first sound that you always hear coming from the Putorino is the hawahine, or the female voice, or raukatauri. And I'm just going to press a little bit of a button here, which is going to give a reverb effect. So you can hear the sound of the Putorino, hopefully. How was that? Okay. I'm using a bit of technology here. So I've got the ancient and the modern, and sometimes there's some issues, but hopefully not today. So that was Raukatauri. She's got a very, quite a mysterious voice in the ngahere, in the night forest. And to the left here, you'll see another little face. And this is Pepe. That's the male night moth. And at this point in the story, they hadn't met each other, and he was flying around looking for food in the evening, much like our modern man getting up out of bed in the middle of the night for a night snack and going to the fridge. But of course, this moth was flying around looking for leaves to eat. And his favorite leaf was the tarata, which is the lemonwood tree. And so he was flying around there looking for that leaf. And all of a sudden, this gust of wind came from behind, and we call it a rerenga titaha, which is when you tilt in your flight. And because of the power of the wind, his flight path went a bit titaha, went a bit off kilter. And so what happened was at first he tried to fight his way out of the wind. But the wind grew stronger. And so he recognized that at a certain point, if I keep fighting my way out of this wind, my wings will be damaged, and then I'll be no good for anybody. So he went with a different approach, and that was to tuck his wings in and to go with the wind and relax himself and not try and fight the wind. And it was really a recognition that obviously the wind's much more powerful than him. And the second part is that the storm never lasts forever. So he was taken and blown way up into the rangi, which up into the sky. And as he predicted, after some time, the wind started to die down, and he started to make his descent back into the ngahere, into the forest. And he came off the tail end of the wind, and he could flap his wings again, and he was back in the game and looking for leaves again. And sort of simultaneously at that point, he heard this beautiful sound. And it was kind of faint, but kind of strong, and it was very mysterious to him, and he was very curious about what that sound was, and he'd never heard that sound before. So he decided, he hata kai, never mind about the food, I'm going to fly towards this sound, this song that I've never heard before, because I'm very curious to know who is singing or making this sound. So he flew and he flew and he flew, and eventually he came to the branch, to this rako, this tree, and he sat up on the branch, and there he could see her in her chrysalis, and he could see her beautiful face sticking out the top. Now the Raukatori moth's quite unique in terms of moths. She actually has the ability to detach her cocoon, and that's so that if it's windy on one side of the tree, she can detach the cocoon and move it around to the other side of the tree and be more sheltered. And so another English name for the Raukatori moth is the bag moth, and I sort of liken it to if you're in a sleeping bag and you're kind of bouncing around and your arms are still free and you can like hold your cup of tea, and and so it's a similar kind of imagery as a human in a sleeping bag, and that's our word wharetu ngongo is sort of like encapsulates that, being wrapped up but still being mobile in a way. So so he saw her and he listened to her song, and he was really impressed and really hypnotized by her beauty, not just her physical beauty but her song, and this just kind of radiance coming from her that he was very captured by. And so he watched and listened. She was so focused on her song that she didn't even notice him in her tree there. And so she kept singing. And this went on for a long time, through the night. And eventually she finished her song of thanks and she went back down into her cocoon. And Pepepe, the male night moth, he was kind of left in a tree, similar to when you go to a concert or a festival or a gig of some kind, and it finishes, and then you're kind of there, maybe wondering, oh, am I going home, or is there some kind of after party, or So he was having these kind of similar sort of thoughts, and he decided, you know what, I'm not going to go home because that's boring. What I'm going to do is I'm going to repay the favor and I'm going to sing back to her. And so sometimes another unique feature or unique skill of that night moth Raukatori is she makes a double cocoon. One of the only moths in the world that can do this. Well, the 2-story house. And multi-level. And the second sound that you hear in the Putorino is the voice of Pepepe, or the male voice, the kōkiri-tāne we call it. And so this is Pepepe, the male night moth, singing back to Raukatori to repay the favour. And so his voice reverberated through the night forest, and Raukatori, of course, she heard this beautiful song of this male night moth, and she came to the top of her cocoon and she popped her head out the top and she looked across, and she was like, who's this handsome fella in my tree? Who invited him? Sort of like, but listen to her song. Oh, he's quite a good singer. So she listened to his song and watched him and observed him. And when he finished, of course, she responded back to him by singing back. And this went on all night long. They were taking turns, one to listen, one to sing. And in a way, getting to know each other through song, which is a big part of our culture and many other cultures, is the singing, as we heard this morning. Now, I hi ake a tamanui te rā, the great sun came up over the mountains, and the first rays of the sun came into the forest, And so Rauka Tauri, she had the last song. So remember, she had the first song, and now she has the last song. And within that song, and I'll just play this other one here. Was an invitation. If you're not familiar with night moth language, there was an invitation in her song to come in. Like when we're with our kids, we make a lot of jokes and we say, she sang to him, say, hey, Pepe, you must be thirsty from singing all night long. Why don't you come in for a cup of tea or, a coffee or a Milo or whatever you fancy. And so he came in into the whare. Now you'll notice in the whakairo and these carvings here, which was carved by one of my great-granduncles when he was alive, there's her face is, I noticed straight away, and I asked my granduncle, we have one word for elders, and that's kraua or koro. It doesn't matter if it's granduncle or grandfather, they're kind of the same status. So we asked the koro, why did you make her face bigger than his? Because his face is really little. And what he told me was that in the nature, the Rauka Tauri moth, the female's 3 times bigger than the male. So in saying that and knowing that, Pepepe, the male night moth, he didn't make a straight line. He wasn't so fast to when she invited him, he wasn't straight in there basically. He kind of came round in an awhiowhio shape, which is a spiraling shape. And she noticed that he was a little bit scared or hesitant. And so she would change her song on each turn. And in her song was sort of encouraging him, hey, don't be scared, come on. And so it was a welcoming way to welcome and encourage him. And so on each turn, because of the power of her song and her invitation, he was gaining more and more courage. And eventually, he came to the entrance there and he landed on the top and he was welcomed into the whare. And remember, this is a children's story. So, and I'll give you the adult version in a second. But basically, he went into the whare, and then just like how your mum and dads had you, hey, Rauka Tauri and Pepepe, they had their own tamariki eventually too. And when the children were born, they lived in this bottom part of the cocoon. And I asked my kraua, why did you carve these lines on here? And what he told me was that when those little night moths, those baby ones, when they're born, they are little, and so they live in the bottom part of the cocoon. But as they get older and bigger and more wise and stronger, they move up to the different parts of the house. And these are carvings that are symbolic of the development stages of the tangata, of the human. So from a baby to infant to the toddler, to me, so, and by the time they get to this middle part here, they ate their way out, and they were getting ready to go and start this whole cycle again and start their own families. So this last sound that you hear is the song of the children. Yeah, so that's the story of the pūtori no and our atua of music in Aotearoa Rauka Tauri. And I did mention that there was an adult version in the, because all of this, like a lot of indigenous cultures, and I'd say all cultures actually, if you go right back, It's all to do with knowledge of what's happening in the natural world. And so I'm always astounded at the depth of knowledge, just in terms of this one little night moth. They're actually termed as a pest in New Zealand and under kind of common law. And that's because they get into people's cupboards and eat their clothes and eat your socks. And, so but they're actually really beautiful, magical beings in our minds and hearts as Māori. And here's a few sort of fun facts. Is the female is, as we mentioned, is 3 times bigger than the male. And so what happens is the female actually sings a song in the night forest. And if you're really lucky and if you're far away enough from kind of the modern sounds of, building and planes and cars and all that sort of stuff, you might actually hear that sound, and it's a very high pitched kind of whistling sound that this night moth makes. I've never heard it, and some of my elders talk about that sound being a sound that our ears have tuned out of, because now we live in a modern world. There's a lot of other sounds, and so when we're not like our tupuna, who were free to walk into nature, and that was it. But that story's been handed down, and it's this high-pitched song. Basically what happens is when she makes her cocoon and she comes to the top, she'll sing this song, and that song's designed to capture or to attract one male in that whole ngahere. And so he might be out flying around like the story. And as soon as he hears that song, he drops everything and starts to fly towards it. And as he gets closer to the cocoon, what happens is he starts to resist the sound, and he'll start to fly back away. And this usually happens when he's close enough to the female that she can sight him or see him. And what she does is she changes the frequency of her song, and then that kind of makes it irresistible for him. So there's this dance where where it gets closer and then he moves away, and then that happens quite a bit. And when he gets close enough, she'll actually pluck him out of the sky. She has these big front legs or arms, and she'll grab him out of the sky and pull him into the cocoon. And once they go into the cocoon, and then when I was with some scientists, it made me laugh because they had this word copulation. And so when they copulate, after that happens, the male will actually, and this also makes me laugh a bit, the male will be a little bit sleepy. And so what happens is when he's in that sleepy state, she weaves him in another cocoon inside the cocoon. And so over time, of course, because he's stuck, and so he perishes, and ko mate, and the first meal that when the children are ready, the only way they can eat their way out of this cocoon is if they gather enough strength, and the only way they get that strength is by eating and devouring their father, and then that gives them the strength to eat their way out, and then that whole cycle can start again. Which is pretty gruesome if you're a male human, if you compare yourself. But I always, when our old people shared those stories with us, I was amazed, because I was only a young father, and it really made me start to think about my role as a father in the family, and what sort of sacrifices I was willing to give life to our family and our children and our next generation. So yeah, that's the adult version of it, of the Raukatauri. And so this is the Pūtorino, this one. And this one here you only find in Aotearoa. We have a lot of similar instruments to our cousins in the Pacific, and right through Australasia actually, but particularly nose flutes. But this one here you only find in Aotearoa in New Zealand. When you hear this one being played, it's made from the rimu tree, which is a native tree of New Zealand, a beautiful red wood tree. And so that's the sound and song that comes out of this, is also that song of the rimu. Probably like, I'd say the same as Renfred, and but just the feeling is that we don't ever make mass produce that's a part of our tradition, is that we don't mass produce these instruments. They're all one-off. So my karaua, my great-granduncle who made this, he only made one of this kind, and I was really lucky to be given that when I first started this work about 20-something years ago. And so that's the song and sounds that you've heard of the rimu tree, as well as this voicing and this sound of our Atua, raukatauri. And this other one that I showed you, the double, this one is made from the tōtara tree. So when you hear it, what you're hearing is the tōtara tree singing to us. And the idea behind that is that it's celebrating that genealogical, I think that's a word, connection with that tree. Yeah, because, when we talk about a whakapapa to a tree, we also have the knowledge around the family tree, no pun intended, of that tōtara. Yeah, so tōtara's father is mumuwhango. Tōtara's mother is mumuwhango, and tōtara's father is tāne mahuta. And so we can, we sing about these things, and that's how we remember them. So that's the tōtara. Yeah, and another interesting, well, I think it's interesting anyway, is that we have the way we have the tahatane and the tahawahine, which is our way of expressing that balance between all things that are female and male, those two elements, and that there's not one's greater or less, they're both integral part of each other. And so within our music tradition, we have that approach as well. And that's a big part of why I work together with my partner. I've been practicing for 20-something years, and my partner's been practicing for about 3 or 4 years. And but it's not that one's more important. It's actually that in the times that we have come together and we've presented our work, especially our work in the Rongoā Māori, which is our traditional healing practices, that's been really powerful. And I know because I had 15, 16, 17 years of kind of practicing by myself, and then once my partner came in and we started to do that mahi together, then it's gone to another level, and it's really more in line with our ancestral ways of being. We are a colonized people, which is not a joke, but it's just being honest about that and being real about it. And so part of that is that we're always looking at ways to reclaim and revitalize our ancestral practices, which is a constant mindfulness and consciousness of how we can be. And obviously, if we're going into schools and working with our young people, it's really important for them to be able to see that happening, so that we can remove those shackles or those chains of and so what I'm talking about is a lot of the times in more sort of past but recent, because of like that patriarchal imbalance, what's happened is that our men have been portrayed as the knowledge keepers, and then our women have been viewed as not as important. And sadly, our people adopted some of those ways, and so we're really making a conscious effort to be able to come back into our pre-European ways of being, I'm always mindful too when we talk about these things. It's not that I'm belittling Europeans, or because I also right at the top stated that I'm from Ireland in my ancestry as well. So it's it's just an observation, and it's just a sharing and being truthful in that sharing. So So anyway, maybe I'm going off the track, but it's all connected. I wanted to share this one with you, and I am a little bit sad that Ruiha can't join us, because the great thing about the kōrero is I share my male version, and then she'll come in and or maybe vice versa, she'll share the taha wahine, and in our work we notice that she picks up a lot of things I don't pick up on, and vice versa, and so we have that practice of that complementary. So I'm going to be talking on behalf of her, and she's actually watching this with our children, so if I get it wrong, sorry, love. This is her great-grandmother's Hui Puruho. We were both really lucky that our grandmothers were the main sharers of the knowledge that we hold in practice today, and so this one was given to Ruiha and handed down from her great-grandmother, and it's actually come from a lot further back than that too, and we can tell because of the pigments, the kokowai that's been used on this this instrument, or this ipu, and some of you might recognize it in your own cultures. It's the hue, or the gourd fruit, I think they call it, so this one we call the Hui Puruho, and it's an ipu, or a storage vessel for many things. We can use them for water carriers, we can use them for musical instruments, and so it's got a very deep sound, particularly this one, and I'm going to play it, and hopefully you can hear it through your speakers, because sometimes the depth of the sound is a bit inaudible, but here we go. Did you hear that at all? Yeah? Oh, nice. So yeah, as I mentioned, this is a Hui Puruho. It belongs to my partner's great-grandmother, whose name was also Ruiha. And this one here, we recently we had a baby. He's a year and a half now, or maybe a little bit over. And during our haputanga, or pregnancy, we utilized and revitalized the practice of using our music again during that time to help mum, to help baby in the womb. And so this one here is, if you did hear it, it's got a very deep sound, and it's got a very soft, gentle sound. And so it's in a way, it's like a pacifier. It's reminiscent of the sounds of the wind, and it's got this deep resonance, so the sound's able to travel through into that space, the whare tangata we call it, or the womb, and so we use this a lot, particularly at night time when we were all going to sleep. If baby was doing flips or wriggling around a lot, we would just sit there and play the Hui Puruho to help baby calm and settle, and then obviously then mum can settle down too, and then we can all go to sleep. Sometimes Ruiha would play it, and she would just sit there with this on her puku, on her tummy, and she would play it, and other times I would play it. Sometimes our other children might play it, so we really, everyone was involved in that. Probably the most, aside from that, the other time that we saw that it was really powerful was during contractions. So during that contraction phase, I just observed Ruiha breathing, and then I would mimic the pattern of her breathing by playing the hui puruho. And so what we observed, especially Ruiha, said that was a very calming sound for her, and just helping her to breathe, and to sort of like harness into the breath. And for our baby, because that time's very traumatic, being born into the world for us all. And so that helped baby to calm down. And also it became a welcoming song in a way for baby to feel calm as he was born. So that's the hui puruho. We had another gourd, which we also made before baby was born, and that was to store his pito, which is umbilical cord, and the whenua, which is the I just had a mind blank what that is in English. But basically, when baby's born, and then the second part of the birth is the whenua, the placenta. So we store them in these ipu, and then once baby's born, we have a ceremony where we bury them on the whenua, on our lands, and we plant the tree on top. So that becomes the baby's tree, and pito and the whenua go back into the soil, into papatuanoko, the earth mother, and then that becomes the nutrients for the tree to grow. That's a practice that we've haven't stopped practicing even through the colonization, and it's a beautiful one, because then our children have a special tree that they know that and it connects them. So so there's a different type of hui, but when we're using it in music in that way, then it's a hui puruho. And then if we go like this, which is the seeds inside from a long time ago, from Ruiha's tupuna, her ancestors, that's a hui puru wai, which is making the songs of the water or the streams or the river. And again, they're all pacifying sounds. And because the hui in a lot of cultures around the world, not just Māori, they have a real connection with Hina Marama, the moon cycle as well. And we have a famous story about Rongoā, who was taking her hui, her taha, her water bottles down to the river to fill them up during the hot summer, to bring back to her children and family to drink the water. I won't go into that story, but just to give you a little snapshot of it. And there's in the story, there's about the moon as well, and about how the moon and Rongoā and the hui interact with each other. That's the hui. And you have different sized ones. We're about to prepare to get ready to grow some more this year. And so sometimes you get the seeds for the smaller ones, and these ones are nose flutes or ponga ihu. Really beautiful, soft sound again. And again, these are used also for our babies at night time. Now, if Tawhirirangi is the name of our son, and if he's having trouble going to sleep, or sometimes he might be a bit sick, we've just come through a pretty cold winter, and so a lot of illness and coughs and flu and all that stuff. So sometimes we play the ponga ihu for him at night time just to help him go to sleep. And as I mentioned, that's played with the ihu or the nose. That's the name of it, ponga ihu. And in there you'll see the clues on what they're used for. Po is the night, ponga, the nights, ponga ihu, and it's sort of like the the song of the night time for our babies, eh? You can get even smaller ones, and they all make different sounds and songs. And the Atua, as I mentioned before, the Atua of music, one of them, the goddess, is Raukatauri for the Putorino. For the Hue, it is an Atua called Hine Pū Te Hue. And Hine Pū Te Hue comes about in our creation story. And so I'll just give you the quick version of the creation story. When we go right back to the beginning of time, we have Io Mata Te Kore. It's the nothingness, the great nothing. Te Kore means nothing. But it's not nothing in a deficit way. It's when my grandfather, my korohi, always used to say, when you have nothing, that's something. It was always like, what the hell does that mean? These cryptic elders talking to us, because it would always be when we're moaning, I don't have this. When you have nothing, that's something. So, so Te Kore is the start of our creation story, the great nothing. And from this great nothing, there seems to be some movement, something. And then over eons of time, there's this kakano, which is like a seed. And the seed starts to whiz around and turn and twist. And then eventually that becomes Rangi Nui and Papa Tuanuku, which is our Earth Mother and Sky Father. But they're not, in this part of the story, they're not how we see them now. They're together. They're locked together in this ball like a seed. And more time goes by and they start to spin around and around, and they're sort of realizing their own potential, and then they become much bigger than a seed, and they're this the male and female elements of all life. And what happens is they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they make this promise to each other that they'll never let each other go. So they're in this loving embrace, this giant cuddle. And of course, when they have children, the children are born in between them. And as more children are born, the children start to become a bit squashed and a bit frustrated because they're born in between this giant cuddle of their parents, and there's no light there. It's dark, it's hot, it's sweaty, and so they start to kind of like get very frustrated at the situation. During this time, there's a hinatori, and a hinatori is another name that we call a glowworm. And they just see this little speckle of light in between their parents, and so they decide to investigate what that is. And at this point, there's a lot of children. The older siblings in the story, they decide that they don't like this new thing. They look at it and sort of freak out. But it's actually the younger siblings who are really keen to know what this is. And so there's a bit of debate and a bit of to and fro, and there's a bit of bullying from the older children. They don't want this. They're trying to tell the younger children, don't look at that thing up there. And eventually what happens is Tāne, who's our atua for the forest and the trees, digs its hands into Papa Tuanuku, like the roots of a tree, and does a handstand, and then with its legs, like the branches of a tree, pushes up against Rangi Nui and separates them into the position they are now. And there's a lot of pain and agony in this process because Rangi Nui and Papa Tuanuku, Sky Father and Earth Mother, have already made a promise that they'll never let each other go. But they're sort of ripped apart by their own children. And because of this, there's we call it the Pakanga Nui o Te Ao, the great battle of the world between the nature. These atua, these different beings of nature, all start to fight each other because they, the older children didn't want the separation and the younger ones did. So they start battling each other. And then as more time passes, Rangi Nui, Sky Father, looks down onto Earth Mother and starts to tangi, and that's when we first ever have rain, the raindrops from the sky caressing Papa Tuanuku. And Rangi Nui is very upset to see all the children fighting on their mother. And so this rain falls from the sky, and within the raindrop is a seed for the hui, and the seed lands on Papa Tuanuku and out grows this gourd. It's also our story about the gourd. And when this gourd matures and the fruit starts to develop, one of the younger Atua, Hine Pute Hui, she takes the form of the gourd. And some say that that's why, she has the sort of shape. And it's also another sort of indicator to be used during the haputanga. Now, Hine Pute Hui, when she's born into the world, she's born into fighting and warring and determination, that sort of energy. We have another atua of war, and that's tūmatoinga. Tūmatoinga's fighting energy, but not so much in a perceived bad way. It's also determination and those things that sort of get us up and off the ground and back into it, So when she's born, she observes all her siblings fighting each other. And what she does is she takes her first breath in, just as we do when we're little babies. We come into the air world and then we cry probably or scream out. And so that's what she does. She takes her first breath in, and her body's filled with this energy of fighting and war. And so it makes her sort of balloon out a bit like that. And when she exhales, what happens is she, we say mena ka huri ta ahua, to change or transmute the energy. And so she starts to sing, and her song is a song of peace. Yeah, and all the siblings hear this sound. It's not a loud sound, but it's a very powerful sound, and so it stops them in their tracks. They're all fighting each other, and then they stop to turn and observe and listen to their younger sister, sibling, and she's singing this beautiful song. And so what it does is it symbolizes the end of the pakanga nui. That's the end of the fighting phase of the world's creation, and then they're all able to become peaceful and then go into creativity. And so they start to create this world that we live in now and how we see it now. So that's that's the short but rather long version of our creation story. And that's where you hear about Hine Pute Hui. And so in these modern times, because there was a time when I was growing up, when I was going to school, to mainstream school, where our stories were labelled as myths and legends. And when we reflect back, it was really a way to diminish our ancestral knowledge. But luckily now, we didn't fall for that trick for too long. Now we're coming back into this time where we're really starting to embrace those stories again and really look at how does this make sense in the modern world. So part of our rongoā or therapies for health is really to look at these ancestral wisdom and pūrākau again, and to see how we can or make sense of them now in a modern world when we relate to things. And so they really speak to the heart of our people, because we love these stories, we've grown up with them if we've been lucky, and now we can start to view them in a more modern sense and work out, okay, this is what's happening, and this is a reference, we're referencing back. So that's the story of Hine Pute Hui, our Atua or goddess of peaceful song and a peaceful state. And I'll just play this little one for you. And those little ones, as I mentioned before, they're called punga ihu. We use these also when we're receiving our mataora and our moko kauwai, so our women receive their chin tattoos there, and our men receive the face, or just face tattoos in general. And that's because it's quite painful. And so what happens is we'll play these on the opposite side to the kaita, who's the person who's giving the tattoo. And then we can play directly into the taringa, into the ear of the recipient. And that's really to help them during that process of pain and to transport you into another space so that you can go on the journey and just to help out. And same of how we use it in the haputanga with our wahine and the pregnancy. It's the same concepts around using sound as a healing tool. I can't not mention Matua Hirini Melbourne and quite a few. There was a group of people who helped revive our musical instruments in the 80s and 90s, and that was quite a interesting revival. And for me, when I reflect back to those elders who helped revive those, which included our own grandparents, what happened was there was a small group, Matua Hirini Melbourne, Richard Nance, Brian Flintoff, others as well, and they collectively gathered together and they travelled all around the marae of our of Aotearoa. And marae are our ancestral houses and gathering places for our people. And they went around to visit all the old people of the time in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And they revitalized the practice again by playing these instruments to our old people. And what happened was the sound, of course, as we all know, the sound set off memories again, and so they were able to reassemble the music tradition, because our music tradition was kind of one of the last things to be revived out of our culture. In my opinion, it's still in a space of revival. Wow, it's just the same as any cultural revival. There's a lot of things to get through. So that was the reason why when Brian asked us for a name for this presentation, we wanted to talk about the Oro Atua, because we've done a lot of great things out there in terms of the Western view of music, Grammy and orchestras and, what have you, touring around the world and going to festivals. But we've always maintained that our most important work is with our children, going to schools. And probably in the last 10 years, we started to look into the revival of taonga Puoro as a Rongoā Māori. And Rongoā Māori is our traditional medicines. This is what we call it, Rongoā. Rongo is our atua of peace. So we heard about Hine Pute Hui as our sort of a female, the female side of that. And then Rongo is the male side. And it's to do with the gardens, the planting and harvesting of food. And I'm not sure if there's any gardeners in amongst us, but you know that when you go into the garden, it's quite a peaceful place to be, and it's a very so in our mara, in our garden here at our home, we have a carving of rongo to symbolize and to revitalize that practice. And so when we harvest our kumara or any of our first harvest, we always make an offering to rongo. And so Rongoā is all types of different healing modalities, traditional. So the Oro Atua is the revival of the Rongoā of taonga Puoro, our music tradition. Oro is the sound or resonance, and Atua refers to our Atua Māori, which are our spirit and energy beings of nature. And which you can also say gods and goddesses of the nature. Yes, so I started in this work when I was in my early 20s. Actually, I started when I was 8. I was with my grandmother one day, and she was eating a thing she referred to as boo-boos, which the full name is pupurangi. And pupurangi are these type of sea snails that our old people would eat. I used to eat a few of them, but I wasn't that keen, because I just, it was a delicacy for our old people. I love them now, but back when I was a child, I was a little bit like, we had a lot of distractions like McDonald's and things like that. So, so I ended up coming into the kitchen, the dining room, and my grandmother was eating these sea snails. And I used to have a couple, and then I'd run back outside and play. But on this one occasion when I was 8, she said, "Oh, come over here." She had just finished eating this very one that I have in my hand. And she said, "Do you know these are our musical instruments?" And so I'm a child of the 70s and 80s. In the 80s, we didn't really see our musical instruments. My grandmother would say that they were never lost, but they were hidden for a time that was safe for them to come back out. And so, so for some reason, when I was 8 years old, that captured my attention, that she had said, "Oh, this sea snail shell is a musical instrument." And at that point, I thought a Māori musical instrument was a guitar, because really that's all we saw was, guitars and more modern instruments. We didn't see our ancestral instruments. And what she said to me was only 2 sentences about this. She said, when you have a quiet moment, you sit there with this boo-boo and you blow the sound of the wind across the edge, and what will come out is the songs of the ocean. And so what I did was I put it in my pocket and I ran back outside, and I managed to somehow keep this little shell until the right time for me. And so that's all that she'd said. And when I was in my early 20s, I went into depression and I went into suicide. I guess growing up in Aotearoa as Māori wasn't always the most fun. We had, we had all sorts of stuff happening here, and so I went into this real dark time of my life, and I went into suicide attempts. And what happened was, after that, I was taken into the mental health system, and then I went to visit a psychiatrist, and in about 5 to 8 minutes maybe, I was diagnosed with bipolar, and then I was quickly written a prescription and given this medication, so I went straight onto the medication, and sort of zombied me out. I was very, just couldn't really participate. I was already hard enough, but then I just, and so luckily amongst that system, we started to have these Hauora Māori, which is Māori health provider, and within that was one of my whanaunga, or one of my relations in my tribe, has passed away now, Matua Royce, and part of my therapy is he took me back into the forest. And in that time, in my early 20s, I had an idea that he was going to counsel me through my problems, because I didn't really know what the problem was. And I guess part of the effects of colonization is it's so subtle, but it's so powerful that you might not even know what this is, as a young person. And so I went back into the forest with my uncle, and I thought, oh yeah, he's going to counsel me, because that was my idea. When you get unwell, you go to a counsellor, and so here's my counsellor, who also happens to be a uncle, a distant relation, but an uncle. So we started walking in the forest, and an hour had passed, and there were no words spoken. And this went on for 4 hours. And I started to get a word that we say is hoha, where we get annoyed because something's not happening here. We say hoha. And when we got after 4 hours of walking, I was pretty tired in the deep forest, and I'm not talking about a forest track. It's just straight through the forest, so you're climbing through vines and all sorts of stuff. So even though I was a little bit frustrated, I was a bit tired to be frustrated. And so we have the saying, ko pau te hau, you've got no more breath left because you're breathless. So I was at that point, and he started to look to the trees, and what he said was, nā wai awhi tēnei tama, which of you trees are going to look after this young man? And at that point I was wondering who was crazy, me or him. But I just went with it and listened to him. And to my surprise, there was a tree, there was a big stand of trees, old ones, and there was a tree on the far left, and it started to creak. I don't know if you've been in the forest where you hear a tree creaking in the stillness of the forest. And it's kind of quiet, but quite loud and unmistakable. So he pointed at that tree. There you go. That tree's talked to us. And now your job and your therapy is to go over there and sit on the roots of the tree and sit with your back on the trunk of the tree. And so I just listened. I didn't know what was going on. I went over there, I sat down. And his one piece of advice, that because at this point he hadn't talked to me. He was talking to the trees, and now he was telling me, okay, go and sit over there. And his words were ata wakarongo, which means listen intently. You will listen carefully. And that's your rongoā, is to ata wakarongo. So you're going to listen. So I sat there, I went with it, even though I didn't understand as a young person, and I listened. And then he said, right, I'm going to keep walking, but I'll be back to get you. Don't go anywhere. And I got a little bit angry because I was like, well, firstly, I don't even know how to get out of this forest. He's leading us. And secondly, where's the counselling? And so I went with it. He went off, and then I was just there in the middle of this bush called Rongoā, and just listening. And so once I calmed down and started to really listen, and it was this point I'll always remember, between just about going to sleep but still awake. And it was like someone turned up the volume in my ears, and I could really hear this whole sound of the forest. And, very quiet sounds, but beautiful, an orchestra of nature. And that's when I remembered that my grandmother had given me this. And so I had an amazing experience just doing that. And so then every Wednesday he would pick me up, and we would go into that same forest and walk to that same spot, and he would leave me right there again. And we did that for maybe 3 or 4 months. And my second time, I decided to take this little instrument that my grandmother had given me, and I would start to try to play it. We don't have any reeds in our flutes, and so they're quite difficult. You've got to find the sound. And I liken it to human relationships. We can't sometimes expect just to meet people and become friends straight away. Hey, we've got to work on the relationship and build trust. And so that's the same with our instruments. And so I started to, and it was really hard to get a sound. But what was happening for me was that I was feeling good about doing it. it was the first time I started to feel good about something. And then eventually I got a sound. And it's probably sounding pretty terrible through your mic speakers, but it's got a really high-pitched, quite shrill sound. That was my way each time of going into the forest to give something back to the forest, because I started to really realize this is the therapy, is going back into the ngāhere, to the nature. After more time, I really didn't like being in town anymore or in the city. I actually preferred to be in the forest, so I'd go in there every day. I did that for quite some time. And then I started to look at some of the work that Matua Hirini Melbourne and the Haumanu Collective, they made some little books for our kids, and then there was pictures and some stories about Taonga Puoro, our music tradition. And so that started me off in that work. And so I came into our music tradition through trying to get better, through a Rongoā, through health. And so it wasn't until really sort of 10 years ago that I would even tell that story, because I was very ashamed of my suicide attempts and my depression and being on medication. And, I didn't feel like that was a cool story. And so, but then this is how the Oro Atua was born. Our practice that we have now was through realizing, perhaps if this helped me in my generational trauma, perhaps it can help others. And I began, I always talk about the revival of Taonga Puoro, our music tradition, really has been revived in the reverse order of the potency of what they can offer our people. And I love going to watch music just purely for entertainment. That is a rongoā, I must admit. But there's levels of potency. And so I started off by joining a band and touring around Europe and learning the ins and outs of being in a band, a Māori band, quite a well-known wahine toa. Her name is Moana Maniapoto, and she had a band called Moana and the Tribe, and we would go to Europe every year and tour around, and I would play my Taonga Puoro as part of the music. But I always knew, being on the stage, that there was something not quite right here, because, we would look out into the audience and we'll see people partying and drinking, and I sort of knew, this is, what we have here is sacred. So I was spending a lot of time trying to make sure that that didn't cross over. And so 10 years ago, we decided that that we wouldn't do that as much anymore, and we would just focus on going home to the marae, the ancestral house. And if you've been to Aotearoa, and I know some of you are coming, we have these beautiful carved houses, and they have tukutuku, which is our weaving, and they have all these different ancestral patterns and stories. And so that's the way that we tell stories, is through our art forms, like everyone else. And so we thought the best place for Taonga Puoro is our music, is to get everyone back into the whare, and lying down in the whare, looking up at these beautiful carvings, and then we would share our music in that space, and that felt much more natural. I would say that we've always been guided by our tupuna in this work, because I didn't have anyone to show me how to make these instruments. I had to, sort of going back to my story, I had to, of going back into the forest, I only had pictures of instruments, and the other thing was I'd go down to visit our local museum, and there'd be some in the cases. And so that's how I started to learn how to make them, was to look into the case and look at these books of pictures, and then just try and recreate them and make them again. And sometimes I would get stuck. So I made 8 putorino, this instrument here. It looks very simple, but it's actually quite technical. The shape of it comes from the chrysalis of that night moth, as I mentioned. Not only on the outside what it looks like, but the inside as well. So it's got a barrel and a chamber and it tapers, and then there's a part here where it balloons out and then it tapers again. And if you don't know that, you just can't make them even make a sound. So I made 8 of these, and they all were not a failure, but they just didn't make any sound, or if they did make a sound, it wasn't really the right sound. And so I would go to sleep at night, and I would be asking, how do I do this part? And sometimes I'd wake up in the morning and the idea and the solution was just right there. And a lot of the time that would happen between the awake and asleep part, which I find is a very magical place to be. And so, that guidance from our tupuna and ancestors is a very practical, real thing, and that is how we learn how to make them. So us as a family, our little family, we make them, we play them, and we share them, so that we can do everything ourselves within it. I'm jumping all over the place. But yes, that's how we started this work that we're doing, and we have been touring around marae and schools doing this work for the last 10 years, and visiting thousands of our people and places. And currently we are doing a rangahau, which is our word for research. We have an atua of rangahau called Hine Orokohia, and that is Orokohia, I should say. She is the atua of reflection. And so we're up to 1,200 participants where we've captured kōrero. So we have a format where everyone comes in, lies down, and we create these soundscapes of nature. And what we do is we follow the format of our creation story, so that we come from the past and right into the present, and we follow different atua and their story, but we make that into music. Today I've shared with you the stories, so that's how we've created that, is just by following those ancestral stories and making it into a music journey. It's getting a bit into detail, but I feel like it's a good thing to share. We follow the nature, and the whole thing is following the nature, the power and intelligence of nature. When we look at a bird sitting on the branch, we'll see 3 claws at the front and 1 at the back. And so what we do with this technology, which I'm just going to tilt my screen down here, this is a TC Helicon that allows me to loop and layer and make soundscapes. And so we do live loops where we take the instruments that's related to each atua, and then we record. I'm going to show you practically how we do this in a second. We record 1 loop, and then we add another loop on top, and then we add a third loop. So the 3 is a really important number for us, and that comes back to the bird sitting on the branch. The bird songs are probably one of the most important ways that we get tunes. So we listen to the bird singing, and then we create our tunes from that. A lot of our sound signatures come from just being in the nature. We'll just sit in the nature and we'll play along to the nature and with the nature, and then that's how we compose. So even if I'm working in a Western structure, I'll still compose in a Māori way. And what we're trying to do is bring that into the Western structure. And here in Aotearoa, we are lucky that we have people like Brian that are supportive of this. What we're trying to do is really bring it together, so that say if I work with an orchestra, we're not saying that orchestral music's more important, and we're not saying that Māori music is more important. What we're saying is that the two together is the important thing, and that they must be on the same level. And that comes from what Brian mentioned at the start of his intro, and that's that we have a tiritia waitangi, which means that each partner in the relationship maintains their sovereignty. And so that we don't get that thing of one's more important and one voice is coming down onto the other. Yeah.
Kia ora, Jerome. I just thought I'd pop in. Thanks so much for your. We're just at the hour. I hear some
Reminder.
reverb for me, but we're just at the hour, so I wondered if you would mind if we could maybe close up the session. I know a few people have to go, but if it's okay, I kind of jump in. But I really appreciate you sharing the Mātauranga, this coordinator with us, and your aloha, you and Ruiha. I know her joining us. It's really beautiful, and the work you're doing is just truly amazing. I'm very much struck by it. We don't have a whole lot of time for questions. Would there maybe be a burning comments from a couple in the room who want to jump in and cordero this time? And if it's not the case, where we have to move to the prizes, but I want to thank Jerome and Ruiha for sharing with us. It's just really, really wonderful. And Jerome and Ruiha will be with us in January. And so really looking forward to sharing and meeting you here in Aotearoa. And Tonga Puoro will be very much part of this event. So we're really much looking forward to that. But thank you both for sharing this with us. I think at this time, if we want to move to the prize announcements, which is a very big part of this final session, then I'll ask maybe Jerome to kind of close us out for this session from Aotearoa. We thought we'd end in Aotearoa, kind of leading into this event in January. So now I'll move to the prize announcements. This year, the prize committee will award prizes for the ICTMD prizes for Best Article, Book, and Film. These prizes, as many of you know, were first offered in 2020, and they link with the mission of the Council, quote, to promote research, documentation, safeguarding, sustainability of music, dance, and related performing arts, taking into account the diversity of cultural practices, past and present, and traditions worldwide, end quote. We also have the Student Paper Prize and at the World Conference, and this will be offered again at the upcoming 48th World Conference, so students be ready for that. For each prize, we have a subcommittee who assess the submissions received. So first we'll announce the article prize, then we're moved to the book prize, and our subcommittee chair, Sean Williams, is here with us, and then we're moved to the film prize, for which we have a video from Nicola. So I believe Sunhee is not with us. So for the article prize committee, this was chaired by Sunhee Koo, who is in Auckland. So the International Council for Traditions of Music and Dance Article Prize is awarded annually for an exceptional article. The prize may have appeared in any scholarly journal, including the Council's, or edited volume. The article should represent outstanding scholarship and make a significant contribution to the ICTMD's mission. And the subcommittee for this was chaired by Sunhee Koo, along with committee members Marco Kolb and Larry Whitslade. And I want to really thank the three of them for working so hard. We had a lot of submissions for the article prize. So the results for this prize, we have this year 2 winners to announce, and I'll announce them in alphabetical order. The first winner is Cassandra Bolasso Barden for the article titled The Social Production of a Mallorcan Bagpipe, Collaboration, Technology, Ecology, and Internationalization. And this occurs in the book Shaping Sound and Society, edited by Stephen Cottrell and published in 2023 by Routledge. The prize committee noted that this is an exemplary study of the social life of a musical instrument, engagingly written and meticulously researched. The details of this multi-stage craftsmanship and changes over time are fascinating, and we learn a great deal about this community, the players, and the instrument makers. Our sincere congratulations to Cassandra, who I don't think is able to join us, but we'll be congratulating her online as well. Thank you, Cassandra. Congratulations. And the second winner of the article prize is Stefan Fiel for the article White Caste Supremacy and Disconnection in Fieldwork Encounters. And this is published in the Routledge Companion to Ethics and Ethnomusicology, edited by Jonathan Stock and Beverly Diamond, and published in 2022 by Routledge. The committee noted that in recent years, we have seen many essays on the troubled legacy of ethnographic research, but the author offers a fresh and thoughtful perspective. He draws on details of his interaction with drummers and reflections on his family and family's missionary legacy to address broader questions of ethics and responsibility that are all relevant to all of us in research. Our sincere congratulations to Stefan as the second winner from this. So congratulations to both Cassandra and Stefan for winning this. And again, we'll have this announcement published. So thank you both. And now, after the article prize, we're moved to the results of the book prize. And for this, I'll introduce Professor Sean Williams, who's joining us from the United States. Hello, Sean.
Hello, everyone. I am thrilled to be here, and it's not even the middle of the night for me. Yay! First, I want to thank everyone who writes books about music and culture. It's always a pleasure to read the rich diversity of ideas and descriptions that allow us all to have some access to what people around the world are thinking, doing, singing, playing. I want to also express my deep gratitude to Brian Diettrich, chair of the prize committee, for his dedication and ready responsiveness to random questions crossing multiple time zones. And finally, my gratitude goes out to the members of the book prize committee, Frank Gunderson, who is in Florida, which was just struck by a hurricane. He says he's still okay. Fred Lau, Michael Ianaga. Our decisions were unanimous and immediate because the winners were so clear to all of us. The ICTMD Book Prize Committee is so pleased to award the 2024 prize to Dr. Christina J. Woolner for her book, Love Songs in Motion, Voicing Intimacy in Somaliland, published by the University of Chicago Press. In focusing on a previously undocumented musical tradition in a post-war location that is very challenging to access, Dr. Woolner opens the door to a fraught but beautiful tradition of singing love songs to communicate intimacy and build communitas. Love songs, and I quote, voiced and revoiced, storied and restoried, unquote, are simultaneously metaphorical, heartfelt, and healing. The ways in which love songs flow across social and political boundaries, public and private, intimate and collaborative, live and recorded, places them continuously in motion. Using clear, beautiful writing, Dr. Woolner embraces the multivocal performance and content of love songs in an Islamic environment where gender equality is not always a given, with scholarly analysis and ethnographic rigor. We offer our warmest congratulations to Dr. Woolner and to the Somali people with whom she works. And I believe Dr. Woolner is here.
I believe so. Congratulations, Christine.
Yeah. Turn on your camera for a second and wave or something. All right. And I do see her name there. Christina, congratulations. The Book Prize Committee is also delighted to award an honorable mention to Dr. Stefan Ovinek for his book, Why Sami Sing, Knowing Through Melodies in Northern Norway, published by Routledge. In this fascinating work that foregrounds Indigenous ways of encountering melody, Dr. Ovinek focuses attention on the yoik as its own unique type of epistemology, simultaneously of both the natural world and the Sami, while facilitating communication in the present. This book elegantly explores the many ways in which the yoik and the yoiker can engage animals, landscapes, non-humans, and the past through the power of a living melody, bringing them into a type of felt presence that transcends boundaries. The members of the committee congratulate Dr. Ovinek together with the Sami communities on their excellent work. Congratulations.
Congratulations to both. And again, Christina, I see your message. And thank you, Sean, for your work and the whole committee. It's been really wonderful having you lead this for us.
It was our joy.
Thank you. We appreciate that work. And now the council also awards prizes for the best films. And for this, we have a video presentation from the chair of this committee, Nicola Scaldaferri, who's in Italy, fast asleep. But we thank him and that subcommittee for their work on the two films. And now I can ask Eric to please play the very short video from Nicola.
Hello, greetings to all the ICTMD members. I am Nicola Scaldaferri from Italy. As a chair of the subcommittee for the Documentary Film or Video Prize, today I am delighted to announce you the winners of this year. The prize is awarded annually for an exceptional film or video. It should make a significant contribution to the ICTMD's mission to promote research, documentation, safeguarding, and sustainability for music, dance, and related performing arts, taking into account the diversity of cultural practices, past and present, and scholarly traditional worldwide. But first, let me thank the members of the subcommittee, George Murer and Patrick Alcedo, who did an excellent work in the selection and rating the films. All our choices were in total agreement. Let me thank also the chair of the ICTMD prizes, Brian Diettrich, who was very supporting in all the steps of the process. And now, the 2024 awards. First, I am delighted to announce the Honorable Mention 2024. This goes to Petr Nuska for his film Opalide. The film is devoted to the lives of Romani musicians in Slovakia. The author portrays the pluralities and fluid nature of their musical activities, challenging stereotypes about them and intimately recounting their musical experiences and quotidian lives. Guided by an innovative use of observational approach, Opalide is a collaborative film that breaks conventional molds for ethnographic inquiry. This film beautifully coalesces into an original and fascinating portrait of musical practices on the move. For the winner of Documentary Film or Video Prizes 2024, I am delighted to congratulate Shandu for her film Devagan. Devagan is a rich exploration of the Navadurga performance, a Hindu music and dance tradition, among the Newar people of the city of Bhaktapur, Nepal. Based on careful ethnographic research, it joins together elements of local mythology in its narration. The film astutely brings to the screen complexities of fieldwork research, including the filmmaker's positionality in the culture she participated in and observed. Such complexities are convincingly result in a filmic narrative which shows solid technical mastery and a keen sense of cross-cultural understanding. Congratulations again to the recipients and thanks to all you.
And thank you, Nicola. And thanks to the members of the film committee and the honorable mention and winners. Really excellent results. And once again, congratulations to all the winners. We will be publishing the full results with details in the October bulletin, which, as most of you know, will be coming out in just a few weeks. So once again, our thanks and our congratulations to everyone involved. And keep in mind, the 2025 prizes will be closing in March. So stay tuned for that. Thank you. So I just want to have just a few brief words of thanks to everyone involved in this pre-conference symposium. My colleagues Marcia and Kirsty and Eric and the full team at Cape Breton for running this session. I thank everyone for joining us. See Savani Bohr is still with us, and Soy Bang and others for joining us through multiple sessions. It's been really wonderful to see so many of you here over these past 2 days. And then second, we really hope to see you here in January. We're looking forward to seeing many of you here. We've got a really exciting program planned. It's quite a big conference. It's very large. January is a great time to visit New Zealand, height of summer. So really looking forward to seeing many of you here. And please do get in touch. I'm writing lots of visa letters. Marcy and Kirsty involved in program adjustments, but keep us informed of your movements, and we're happy to help over the next few months. So thank you all for joining us in this pre-conference symposium, and we'll be posting the videos from this online. Kia ora, and thanks to everyone. And now, just to close this session, I thought I would ask Jerome, being here in Aotearoa, to kind of take us out of this session. Thank you again, Jerome, for being here and sharing with us. Really appreciate it.
Kia ora. Awesome. Wow. Thank you so much for having me, Brian, and to you all. Have a lovely rest of your day, or have a lovely sleep. And I'm just gonna play some music. I've talked a lot, probably too much, and but just wishing you all well, and look forward to seeing you in Aotearoa soon. Kia ora. Just wanted to finish by sharing this little story about this. Here is the tooth of a mother whale. It's been handed down. This is one of our older taonga Puoro. It comes from the stranding of a mother whale with her baby. The grandmother that gave this to me, she talked about the whale. It's a paraua, or a sperm whale. And this tooth came from the bottom right-hand jaw of the beautiful mother whale. We have ceremony when we have whale strandings. We had one not so long ago, not too far from where we live. But this one, the story that goes with this one is that the mother whale, when she was alive, she would sing to her baby, as they do, teaching them the navigation pathways of the ocean. And what she said was that when you play this tooth, what's coming out is the love from that mother whale to its baby. And so I thought it'd be a nice way for us to finish off. And the grandmother talked about the sound will remind us of our own connections to our mothers, and honours all mothers of the world. And I'll never forget what she said. She said, only the type of love that a mother would know. That's the sort of song that's coming out of this tooth. And to remind us all that no one comes on to Papatuanuku, to this earthly experience, without coming through the portal of the mother. So I thought that was beautiful, and a beautiful way to honour our mums. And I hope you have a lovely evening, night ahead, or a day ahead. We use this one to help our baby go to sleep at night. And this was the first song or sound that our baby heard after his mum's karanga, his mum's call into the world. We played this one for him, so that was his first sound that he heard as he was born. Just close with a closing ruruku, the nature prayer for us all to go off on our journeys ahead safely and with happiness and peacefulness in our hearts. So, inuhia, 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 hikitea, painga, wate, kia mama. Te urutapu ai o mata te kore kāputa kōrangi, kāputa kōpapa, kāputa ngatua hei tiaki hei manaki a tātou i ngā wā katoa. Wate, kia mama. Turiki waka taha, turiki waka pau. Te mama i te pauri te tau maha te rire. Ka roto ki tēnā, e nei nā panaunga. E mā taki ana, e rungu ana. Ara whiti whana, tau mai te Māori. Haumi e, hui e, taiki. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Jerome. Thank you so much.
That was awesome, Jerome.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you all. This formally closes the session. So I really appreciate you being here. I know our host in Cape Breton is quite late, so we're closed down the session. But I can also give Jerome's contact details, those that want to get in touch and have any cordero, any questions. But thank you all, and appreciate our colleagues in Cape Breton for staying up late and keeping us in the session. Thank you all. See you in January.